From Faith Forward Media, this is Healthcare Musings. I'm Dr. Hashem Hasabala. Welcome, everybody, to Healthcare Musings. I'm so happy to have you with me. I am so delighted and honored to have Neal Shah on the show. He is CEO of CareYaya, which is an innovative, fascinating, amazing healthcare startup. It's actually LinkedIn named it as one of its top 50 startups, period. And it's such an innovative design. It's so interesting. And I just wanted him to be on the show and kind of talk about his startup and kind of elder care in general. And it's a huge need, and it's a huge topic. So great to have you on the show, Neal. Thanks so much for your time and coming on Healthcare Musings.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So why don't you go ahead and kind of give me and the audience your background. I thought you were not that
Sure.
it's bad. I thought you were a doctor, and you're not. So tell us about your story and your journey.
Sure. No. First of all, and thanks for bringing that up. We were our whole team were scrubs to inspire the caregivers who are on our platform, because we think caregiving is healthcare. And, the largest healthcare workforce in our country is over 60 million people, who are putting in the time to take care of aging parents or spouses through, serious illness, dementia, et cetera. So we want to inspire caregivers everywhere that you guys are like doing real healthcare work. So I have a non-traditional background. Since my early 20s, I was in the hedge fund industry. I became a partner at a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund by the time I was 27, generated very high returns, and started my own fund at 31. And I grew that fund from 10 million to 250 million by the time I was 35. I became a caregiver first in my early 30s and then again in my mid 30s. And that shifted really the trajectory of my life. And I realized how difficult it is, when even people with means are going through this. But, kind of the short of it was my grandfather went through a series of serious illness, starting with dementia, then kidney failure, then cancer, and then end-of-life care. And I was care coordinating. Within my family, I'm kind of like the researcher that everyone relies on. But really, I experienced that, that was my first foray in my early 30s, seeing how broken the care economy is, that we have great healthcare in America, kind of like what you guys are doing at the hospitals, the pharmaceutical companies, the surgeries, the procedures, the equipment. I mean, it's amazing. It's some of the best in the world. We also have the worst social care in America, in terms of when somebody goes through dementia, when somebody goes through cancer, this impacts the entire family. And the interaction with the healthcare system is only like 5% of the work, right? Like 95% of it is happening at home. And that system sucks. So, through years of navigating it, ultimately, I found all the care we tried wasn't great quality. And then my mother just ended up leaving her career, to become my grandfather's full-time caregiver for a while. And it was like really difficult for all of us. After he passed, I was still running my fund, and I became obsessed with the care industry. I was just like, there's got to be innovation here. There's got to be cool things going on. Couldn't find much. And then at the peak of my hedge fund career, my wife became severely ill and went through a multi-year a battle with an aggressive form of cancer.
Oh my God.
And I became primary caregiver. And, at that point, I kept taking sabbaticals for my fund to manage her care, but ultimately made the difficult decision to wind down my fund because I felt very guilty about every time I tried to outsource care and get care help at home, that it wasn't very high quality. And given she had a high mortality risk, I thought that it would influence the outcome if I did it myself. So, shut down my fund, became her full-time caregiver for a couple of years. Pleased to say, knock on wood, she finally had a successful outcome and has now been in remission for a few years.
That's
and
awesome.
At that point, I was like, I found myself, I was pushing 40 at that time. And I was like, okay, I'm middle of my life. I'm good at certain things, but I find a lot of purpose in this now, of like caregiving. And I also see there's a huge break in the market and a huge opportunity to improve something through innovation and through kind of social enterprise where you can build a large movement to help a lot of people. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to now dedicate the rest of my career to fixing this. So that was like the founding genesis of starting CareYaya.
Oh, wow. Well, that's so fascinating. And, as a practicing critical care doctor, I'm still, I did shift a couple of days ago in the hospital. You're absolutely right that the care economy is very, very difficult. It's very difficult to figure out what do you do after. Yeah, we're great at rescuing people from critical illness, much more now than we were, even five years ago.
Yeah.
And critical illness can leave, even if you're alive, it can leave people devastated. And
Yeah.
as you know, and that I've seen, what do
Yeah.
you do after? I mean, I think about that all the time, about myself,
Yeah.
members of my family, my parents.
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation, and
Yeah.
what happens? And if the insurance companies deny, which they
Yeah.
frequently do, and I see it all the time,
Yeah.
then what? Right?
Yep.
People don't have the resources or the ability to do it themselves. So tell
Yes.
us more about what CareYaya does. It's
Sure.
specifically.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So if you kind of it's in the examples you gave that I've kind of gone through several times in my life, if you are caregiving for someone who's had interactions with the healthcare system or who needs help, whether it's a aging parent through dementia, through cancer, whether it's a spouse, whether it's even a child, with special needs or traumatic brain injury, kind of any of the above, where the family member is doing the caregiving, CareYaya gives you kind of the ability to get a break by getting vetted, reliable, high quality caregivers, uniquely all of whom are pre-medical and other sorts of health professional students. So, what I kind of found in the market is right now, if you are someone, which was me for several years for both my grandfather and my wife, and you need a break, you will go and find a local kind of care company that's like a franchise or franchisee model. In
Hmm.
most cities, it costs around $40 an hour to get the care. And, if you're like, hey, I got to go to my job, but I need somebody to take care of my mom, dad, or wife or husband, and I'm going to, pay this agency, they'll kind of like find and match you with caregivers and, send the caregivers to your home. The problem in that model is that most of these caregivers are minimally educated. The agency is keeping most of the money. They're paying less than the half to the caregiver. So this person is like sometimes often disgruntled, making 15 to $20 an hour, and really not doing the greatest work. And as a result, you are like, well, I technically got the task done, but I feel pretty guilty about leaving my loved one with this caregiver, right? Because they don't really often even really want to be there. They're just like doing it for the check. We turn that model on its head by saying, well, there are millions of wonderful potential caregivers out there who are healthcare students. Think about all the kids that are pre med, that are nursing, that are pre physician assistant, pre physical therapy. They want to go into clinical careers. They're currently ignored by the care economy. I found in both of my experiences caregiving for my grandfather and for my wife that the family caregivers were finding this was the best kept secret in the care economy, but there's no easy way to access them. You had to go to a local professor, ask, hey, can I post some flyers to find your students? Then they're not available all the time. So you have to manage all these text message chains and say who can do Monday, who can do Tuesday. So we're like, okay, let's just bring that into the formal care economy and do that in an affordable, convenient way. So through CareYaya, we find you healthcare students in your community. So, we are all over the country. We're growing really fast, but we're at 30 out of the top 50 universities in the country right now. So let's just take an example where, if you are in Chicago,
Hmm.
you can pay a local care agency and probably 40 to $45 an hour. They're going to staff you with some, random person who might be minimally educated who doesn't even really want to be there.
Right.
Or, through CareYaya, you can pay $20 an hour and get a pre-medical student at Northwestern, University of Chicago, any of the other wonderful schools, or a pre-physician assistant student, et cetera. Somebody who's really interested in going to healthcare as a career. Um, Best of all, we charge no fees or markups, so all the money goes to the students. We're purely funded by impact funds, and we've received a lot of grants from the NIH for our work. And then on top of that, all the booking and scheduling is very easy for the family member. It's all through technology, so it's about as convenient to use as Uber, where everything is managed digitally. For the busy, I find the biggest caregiver audience in the country is people. Kind of I don't know how old you are. I'm in my mid 40s. It's really this 45 to 55 or 60-year-old. That's really the caregiver, right? That's
Right.
managing aging parents' care. And
Right.
those people have grown up using technology for everything, right? DoorDash, Uber, whatever, Airbnb. So, I think they want a digital experience. So, in a nutshell, that's CareYaya. It's like a convenient way to get care from wonderful students. And as a result of the system we've built, not only is care 30 to 40% more affordable than through other means, but the quality is through the roof. Like the students have such a vested interest in doing a good job because it's preparing them for future clinical careers and even grad school applications that, you know, industry typically will have like a 15% rate of either no show or multiple hours late. CareYaya has a less than 1% rate of that. So on time percentages, reliability ratings, each session is rated. by both the student and the family. And pleased to say, after tens of thousands of sessions, the average rating is like 4.87 out of 5 stars, compared to traditional care industry having about 3.3 out of 5. So it's like better quality care at a more affordable price and more convenient to book. So, that's kind of like the innovation.
Wow. And can these be medical students as well? Or
Yeah.
are you looking
Yeah. They can be medical
strictly
students too.
pre-professional? I mean, they're much busier. Obviously,
Yeah.
they have more
We have
things to
found we
do.
have found that many of the students that join in undergrad, depending on the graduate program they go into, if they go into medical school, sometimes they peel back the hours a lot. But they've developed
Right.
relationships with some of the people, so they'll still do like 3, 4, 5, 10 hours a week to the best they can. But usually
Hmm.
they're going to get busier, especially as second year in med school, etc.
Of course, of course.
People who go to physical therapy or occupational therapy grad programs often will still actually stay doing 15, 20 hours a week of caregiving because they have the time, they want the side income. So it kind of depends on and then sometimes in PA school, they'll drop off, but people will stay pretty active. And then also what we find is sometimes after graduation, nowadays there's, a lot of people take gap years, anywhere from
Hmm.
like 1 to 3 years.
To do
During the gap
to do
years, the
clinical
students will
work.
get
Yeah.
extremely active on CareYaya. Well, some of them will do it 20, 30, 40 hours a week. So the students stay engaged because they really like the work. And what I find about the students doing this type of work compared to working as a nurse aide at a hospital, let's say, is that I think they really value the one-on-one time. It's like if you're a nurse aide at your local hospital, you're kind of like in and out, spending 10, 15 minutes with a patient, then maybe the next day it's someone else, etc. Here, you're like, oh, I'm going to take care of this older person in my community, and I'm doing it 2 to 3 days a week. Well, that might go on for 6 months. It might go on for a year and a half. You really get to know that person. You build a solid relationship. You get to know their family. You get to know kind of all the joys and sorrows of their life, and you get to see them beyond just the diagnosis. And I think that's like really cool. So I think the students actually really like and value the experience, which is why like the platform is growing really fast on the student side.
Oh wow, that's amazing. And these are students are obviously vetted strictly. I mean,
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
clearly vetted to make sure that they're not,
Yeah.
harming
Exactly. Yeah, we
patients.
we do a very very robust vetting. So first, the students typically come to us through professors or pre-health career advisors.
Okay.
Second, we verify enrollment at the university. So we only operate at select universities where we almost view it as we build such strong relationships at the place that there's multiple carrots and sticks, in terms of carrots for good behavior and stick for discouraging bad behavior. So
Hmm.
here it's like the community knows the student's going to be participating in the program, the professors know, the other students know, the pre-health clubs know, and then we put everybody through a pretty rigorous background check. So I'd say of all the people that apply, only about 30-ish% will make it through that. Oh, and then final is we put them through very intense video-based interview screening. And, that way we really know people have non-monetary incentives to do the care, not just doing it for monetary incentives. And then we only take people who are doing this as a pathway to future graduate school. So that creates another big incentive element. So I'd say on average, the rating and reliability and overall quality of the student workforce is sky high compared to the traditional care economy because there's all these other things the students are both getting out of it, and there's all these other community driven safety mechanisms built in. So yeah, it's a heavily vetted workforce.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you know, I'm 51 now, so a little older than you
Right.
are, and
Mhm.
I'm becoming more and more of a curmudgeon
Yeah.
as it comes about, oh, when I was your
Yeah.
age, um care and I say that because caregiving is really hard work. I mean, it's hard
Yes.
work in the hospital.
Yes.
How are you finding these students with their work ethic and stuff? I know you say
Yeah.
reliability is through the roof and everything, but
Yeah.
how are they really good caregivers?
Great question. Great question. I feel like there's actually an interesting self selection mechanism going on where probably 75% of the students that start doing it end up becoming pretty good at it. And then the ones that aren't will reduce and then even just fully leave the platform probably within the first 3 to 5 sessions. So it actually self-selects. And by that, I also find it interesting where many of the students realize, hey, you know what? Healthcare maybe isn't for me because they're exposed to like, this is what it means to take care of someone. This is what it's like to be around people who are going through difficult times. So I feel like it kind of selects itself out. And then, I try to prioritize for like the good ones. And for the students that are doing well, which is the majority of them, they become better and better at it because as they start caring for people, what we've noticed, and we provide them with a lot of training and resources, but nonetheless, it's always on the students to be more proactive. We find the students get very proactive. They start learning about what the person that they're caring for is going through. Many people are living with Alzheimer's or dementia. We also collaborate a lot with like palliative care and hospice. So people will learn about, pain management and things like
I
that.
was
And
I was going to
yeah,
ask you, like, do you collaborate with hospice? Are these some of these patients in
yes.
hospice too?
Yeah, yeah. Some people are in hospice too, and interestingly about hospice, where CareYaya is really viewing it as like filling the gaps. So wherever the family caregiver needs a break, and what we're finding with hospice, an unexpected thing overall with caregiving, is a lot of families. Of course, they need care during the day, right? Because somebody has to go to their job, like the son or daughter. But a lot of people also need care on evenings, overnights, and weekends because that's sometimes when the family member can't do it themselves. They might live in a different city or they might just live 20, 30 minutes away. And uniquely, CareYaya, due to the student workforce, everybody's available. If a evening care session goes through and 20 out of 20 students will be able to do it. If it's like on a Tuesday from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., that shift will have to go out to maybe 15 or 20 students before one of them says, I don't have class then. So we're finding that gap and good for us and good for the industry in the sense that the industry doesn't want to do overnight care. They don't want to do evening care because they're staffing with middle-aged people who are often sometimes single mothers, right? So they
Right.
can't get childcare during that point. So while I said the traditional industry rate is about $40 an hour, in our area, for example, if you need overnight care, it's closer to 50 an hour because no one wants
Wow.
to do it. So in this case, the students will still do it at 20 and everybody wants to do that. So the reason I mentioned all that in a roundabout way is within hospice, I found that to be a big need. Somebody's on hospice at home, sometimes with a diagnosis of like, let's say dementia, where it's like, okay, it might be 3 months or it might be 6 months or it might be a year. They need people around all the time. And sometimes the family members are like, I can't do this all the time. But without assistance at night, when the person gets up to go to the bathroom or needs water or anything like that, there's going to be major risk. Somebody's going to fall, might have to
Yeah.
go to the ER, might get disenrolled from hospice. So we find hospice is like a great, partnership. We're also finding within assisted living and skilled nursing, surprisingly to me, I wouldn't have expected, there's a lot of need where a lot of times somebody will have mom and dad at assisted living, but the assisted living will say, hey, dementia is getting worse. Your mom is wandering too much at night. We can't provide one-on-one support because we're not staffed like that. So you either need to get one-on-one companion at night to be vigilant with them, or we're going to have to remove you from our assisted living. So that's kind of an interesting thing we found. And then skilled nursing is another one where a lot of times people have, oh, after a hip replacement or whatever, they're kind of going to skilled nursing to have a recuperation for 8 weeks or whatever. And
Right.
these places are so dramatically short-staffed that somebody's like, well, my mom's by herself all day. No one's paying attention. And they're like, well, we do the technical needs, but maybe at best, a person's there 3, 4, 5 times a day helping them with basic needs, but not like keeping them company. So that's another thing we found where the family member's like, oh, okay, I'll just send a CareYaya student to, hang out with mom. So all those are needs.
That's brilliant. Like
Yeah.
it's it,
Thanks.
it really is brilliant, and it's such a huge need,
Thanks.
and this is tough. It's tough work, and
Hmm.
you see a lot of people now. Can you get complex? Like, say, for example, people on tracheostomies, feeding tubes, ventilators,
Yeah.
et cetera, or is it more less complex than that? I mean, can you
Great
see
question. Yeah.
can you see yourself in long-term acute care facilities with people
Great
who are
question. I
chronically
think
vented?
Yeah, great question. I think eventually, and I think that would be probably contingent on collaborations. Right
Hmm.
now, for maximum safety of both the students and the families, we're leaning on the very low acuity side, which
Right,
is why it defaults into either dementia or, kind of hospice, where it's like in dementia, many of the patients don't have like super clinical need in terms of they don't need somebody doing injections, they don't have feeding tubes, etc. And
right.
there's this kind of cognitive decline and sometimes not even physical frailty. So they're kind of okay. They just kind of need reminders. And these are situations where it's almost like a companion family member could do it, but it's like, why not have a healthcare student do it? So
Yeah,
there
yeah.
we help a lot. And then in the other end of the spectrum in hospice, it's usually there's nursing support provided, 2 to 3 days a week, etc. So then the student is doing all the non-clinical stuff. We have generally stayed away from all of the other higher acuity needs for now, because we want to give the opportunity to the maximum number of students possible. But a lot of times organizations are reaching out to us about, oh, can you train a subset of the student to do XYZ? Then we could focus on this, because I do think in all those, there are massive care gaps, right? So I think open to that. And I think as we grow, we might start exploring some of those collaborations.
I think students are the perfect, healthcare students
Yeah.
are the perfect, because back
Yeah.
when I was applying for medical school, you could get
Yeah.
away with volunteering at March of
Yeah.
Dimes like I did,
Yep.
or
Yeah.
doing all these clubs and being president of this club and that club and shadowing and
Hmm.
volunteering. Now they
Yeah.
want these students to have had clinical experience. Like,
Yes.
not even scribing is not
Yep.
an. I mean, scribing to me is not. I mean, it's clinical. You're with patients, but now
Yeah.
the scribing is going away with
Going AI,
AI.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's go.
Yeah.
Oh, I have it on my phone.
Yep.
I have it on my phone.
Nice.
It's right here. Right.
Nice.
I have it on my phone.
Yeah.
Um. So these scribing jobs are disappearing literally as we speak.
Yeah.
They want clinical experience, and
Yep.
this is the ultimate clinical experience for these students,
Agreed.
right?
Agreed. Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up about the hours, because it's not just medical school. You know what's funny is the absolute most active population on our platform, far and away, is pre-physician assistant. And it's
Really?
because now, yeah, it's because at some of these physician assistant graduate programs, they're mandating at least 1,000 hours of care before you even bother applying. And they're
Oh,
saying, if
wow.
you
A
want to be
thousand
competitive,
hours. That's
a
almost like a
thousand
pilot.
hours, and
Or
get
not
this,
even.
they're even saying the advisors will say in the sessions that they do at the universities, if you want to be a competitive applicant, make sure you get 3,000. I
Oh,
mean, it's like,
wow.
how are you going to get 3,000 hours, right? So for all these students, they're freaking out because they're like, there's no way I can squeeze that in during the summers. So they're going to be like, I'm going to graduate and do a year and a half, 2 years of gap year. Because like in a 40-hour work week, you might do 2,000 hours a year, right? So the
Right.
students are freaking out. So there, thankfully, if you get on CareYaya, the benefit is, especially the ones that are more proactive, like join freshman or sophomore year, they can just casually knock out 10 hours a week here, 15 hours a week here. It's around their schedule, so they can do weekend shifts, evening shifts, etc.
Mhm.
And they can be at 3,000 before they even graduate. So I actually think, interestingly, one of the coolest things CareYaya is doing, and I'm getting increasing a lot of inbounds from workforce development people, is that we're actually doing workforce development where we're reducing the need for gap years. We're getting people paid income and opportunity to get these hours during undergrad.
Mhm.
And I actually think, going full circle on it, the concept of a gap year, I think, creates an inequity in healthcare education, because, wealthier kids will be able to afford that, right? Whereas like a less privileged person will be like, wait, I already did 4 years of college. Now I'm going to waste 2 years of my life working as a medical assistant at a clinic, making 15, $20 an hour, just for then the privilege to apply to grad school and take out all these loans. So if you can kind of get the students' experiences flexible to their schedule during undergrad, they may not have to take a gap year, and then more people can be encouraged to go into the field. So, so CareYaya helps for that. So, yeah, pre-med for sure. Pre-PA are by far and away the most active and doing the most hours. Then in
Mhm.
other programs, like, for example, people who do liberal arts but want to go to accelerated nursing programs, oftentimes you have to show 500 to 1,000 hours quickly before you can go. So, in all these cases, it really helps with meeting not just the hours requirements, but showing that you went above and beyond. And I would say we're kind of like displacing a lot of other work the students would otherwise be doing, such as working at the campus coffee shop, or, believe it or not, doing DoorDash. A lot of students do DoorDash, food delivery, flexible hours, kind of gig work. And you're like, well, redirect all those hours into doing caregiving. It's better for your resume and it's better for your career anyway. And frankly, the students would say, I'd rather do this than drop off food, but until CareYaya, there wasn't a convenient way to do it on a, gig or on demand basis.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. This is really fascinating, and I think uh, from again someone who cares for these people and tries
Mhm.
to do the best they can, and even despite the best effort that we do, a lot of critical illness really ravages people,
Yeah.
right? Especially
Yeah.
people with dementias, and then the more delirium they have in the hospital, the worse
Yep.
it is after. And so
Yeah.
we do our best, and it's still critical illness still ravages people, and they need
Yeah.
help. And this is, and yeah, I think, as you were talking, I'm just like, well, this guy Neal Shah is like
Yeah.
divinely placed to fulfill a need for something that's it's just huge, and it's just
Yeah.
brilliant and really, really innovative. Um,
Thank
what else? What else haven't we talked about that you want our audience to know?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of things, just obsessing with how can we improve quality of life for caregivers across America.
Hmm.
So some of our projects, we've started leaning a lot into like tech innovation beyond just connecting people with caregivers. So we've done a couple of big grant projects with Johns Hopkins, and then recently we just got a big NIH award for our AI-powered caregiver training platform, which we call Yaya Guide. And we initially built all these AI tools to rapidly upskill the student caregivers to do better dementia care. But
Hmm.
NIH awarded us a big grant because they want us to pivot that to training family caregivers. And that's something we realized because we're helping so many families. And I think that's going to be one of the critical unmet needs of our time is that dementia is growing like crazy, right? We're going to,
Yeah.
over the next decade, it's going to go from 7 million people in the country to 14 plus million. And
Hmm.
part of that is just aging population. So, the unfortunate side effect of that is millions of people who are the spouses or the sons and daughters of these people are going to suddenly become caregivers. Unfortunately, they're not mostly nurses or doctors. They're just random people, kind of like I was, before I became a caregiver.
Right. Yeah.
And there is no opportunity to educate yourself. Like you can't then go to nursing school to figure out how to take care of your dad. You're just learning on the fly. Unfortunately, when people learn on the fly, a lot of mistakes happen. So we have kind of approached NIH with this idea that we had already built this thing for student caregivers, but how could we almost put a coach in your pocket, so to speak, through your phone, through online, whatever. So
Hmm.
24/7 availability, short bite-sized training modules to upskill yourself, personalized to you using AI based on where you are in your journey, based on the person you're caring for. So we can train you just for what you need instead of like a full out certified nurse aid curriculum. And then also to be available. I think one of the coolest potentials, especially now of voice AI, is that you can call and have a full conversation with voice AI. Even if you don't have a cell phone, you can do it through landline. So we've been working on a lot of projects like that, which I think are just going to be awesome because it expands access across the country. Interesting statistic I'll mention for your viewers if anyone's caring for an aging parent. Did you know that 42% of older people in this country don't have broadband internet? 22 million
Is that
people.
right?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy. Like, we take this for granted, right? Because like
We
we're
do.
obviously
Yeah.
on a high speed connection right now doing our podcast, right? But a lot of people don't. So it's like no matter how cool stuff is developed, if they can't get on the internet, they're not gonna be able to use it. And this is one thing where I think voice AI has breakthrough potential because we have built a lot of projects using voice AI that are calling landlines. And everything from reminder about your upcoming healthcare appointment to helping you navigate resources in your community to 24/7 hotline if you're caring for your spouse with dementia and at 2 a.m. on Saturday something's happening and you're like, I don't know what the hell to do. It's like people can call. And I think that we're at the tip of the iceberg in this kind of innovation that both us as an organization, but I also think society, I think that there's going to be really cool stuff developed that's going to be able to help a lot of people who are currently kind of like, it don't have access. Like even first frontline screening. A lot of times people with dementia, we find, we're based in Research Triangle, North Carolina, so like Raleigh Durham area, which is like a very
Hmm.
techie area and it's a very healthcare focused area.
Hmm.
But like you talk to some of the people at Duke Hospital, and they're like, "Oh, we got dementia patients driving 4 hours from the rural areas because like there's no neurology access. So just to get a screening or diagnostic test, and it's like, well, we can do some of this stuff through voice AI calling landlines, seeing if you need to come in before you spend the 4 hour trip. So I just think that there's going to be so many cool things on resource navigation, on screening, on caregiver support that can be now done because healthcare access, we may take for granted, but a lot of people have very little healthcare access. And unfortunately, those are areas where prevalence of things like dementia are much higher and where the caregiving burden is often falling on the family because they don't have that much money.
Yeah.
So I think if we think about our aging population over the next 5 to 10 years, unless we want millions of middle-aged people to drop out of the workforce to care for people, I think we're going to have to come up with innovations and innovations that ideally reach in terms of social impact to people who don't have a lot of means.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I have a whole series on AI and medicine. This week's episode, I talked to a friend of mine who's in the AI space as a non-clinical person, and
Yeah,
he was saying, AI is going to get rid of menial tasks, but there still has to be humans in the loop. And
yeah,
what CareYaya is doing is trying to leverage AI to not get rid of jobs, but
yeah,
actually help human beings
yeah,
do better things and scale and just be better people
yeah.
and better caregivers. So that's just fantastic. So how can people learn more about you and your organization?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you need help with care, you want to reach out to us anytime, you can always visit our site. It's careyaya.org. So CareYaya.org. And then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So it's Neal, Neal, middle initial K, and then last name Shah. And then also becoming reasonably more active on Instagram and TikTok as well. My team will laugh, but I feel like you got to meet the audience where they're at, and
You do, you do.
yeah, like there's a lot of people on TikTok that are going through caregiving. I wouldn't have guessed that, but a lot of middle-aged people who are caring for mom and dad are looking for resources there, same as Instagram. And then I'm also reasonably active on Substack. So yeah, any of those platforms, feel free to reach out. Our team and myself are happy to help people. And then if people want to collaborate on projects, anything to help, family caregivers, that's kind of like really our mission is help the family that is caring for somebody through major illness. Because we think that just like America has kind of like the best and worst, right? We have some of the best healthcare in the world, but we also have some of the, most challenging social care in the world. And I just think that caregiving is grossly underfunded from both an innovation perspective, from if you go through it as a family, from a payment perspective, just isn't a lot of funding. So people are out of pocketing enormous amounts when they care for people, or just leaving their job to do it themselves. I think both of which are bad for society.
I couldn't agree more. Neal Shah, it's been an honor having you on the show. This is really cool stuff, and thanks for all that you do. Thanks for really being an angel in our society and really kind of helping people navigate a very, very difficult. I'm sorry that you had to go through a lot of the things you went through with your family, and it's just amazing that you could take that kind of. I lost our oldest daughter also. She passed away from cancer, so I know the kind of difficulty you've been through, and it's just great that you could turn that kind of difficulty into a tremendous good across the country. So thank you. For coming on the show, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity, and I hope this helps the audience, out there that's listening. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. Sign up at healthcaremusings.com to get every episode delivered directly to your email. And please don't forget to leave a 5-star review. Thank you so much.